So I wanted to talk today about fear. Fear is one of the biggest enemies of modern society. Um, you know, half the population is on medication for anxiety. So many more are taking alcohol, drugs, whatever, just to escape the reality of the fear that they face every day. And specialists, medical people don't seem to have an answer. It seems to be take medication to interfere with the processes that allow us to experience that anxiety. It's a natural process. It helps us to, thrive in many instances. It helps us to avoid bad situations. Fear has got some benefit, but there is another kind of fear that is not healthy. And that kind of fear is spiritual. And so whatever the medical professionals try to do to resolve it, they can't, because they're operating on a natural level, a physical level, or they're operating on a level of the soul, the mind. But the human is made up of three parts: spirit, soul, and body. And fear that I'm talking about here is a spirit of fear. And the Bible is very clear. It says, we have not been given a spirit of fear, but of love, and of power, and of soundness of mind. So we know when we have a real sense of unusual anxiety, one that is debilitating, that affects our well-being, and it starts to break us down. It's not just a natural fear that we take as a means of survival or strengthening or evasion. It is a different level, and that can be overpowering, and it can destroy us ultimately. And so I wanted to explain how to deal with the spirit of fear. It's a demonic fear. It's a demonic spirit. And the devil is playing. The Bible is clear. It says he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. In some part of our lives, if he can get some authority, he's going to do one of those three things. And it's not like kill just our physical being. It can be killing dreams and hopes. It can stealing ambition, things like that. But he will try and ultimately do one or all of those three things in our lives. And fear is one of the most powerful tools to do that. And fear is the opposite of faith. You cannot have fear and faith at the same time. They are totally opposite. You cannot exercise fear at the same time as faith. And so what actually happens when the spirit of fear comes into our lives? It means there is a breach in somewhere in our soul where the faith that we have in God is not operating. In some area of our life, fear has got authority. And so the question is how do we contend and defeat that spirit of fear? I'm going to give you a few tips of how to actually defeat the spirit of fear. And it's not a battle that you just engage in and win. It is a lifelong battle. The spiritual realm doesn't really operate on time. They operate on authority and opportunity. And so the first thing that we have to do is to go back and find out, first of all, where did the spirit of fear come into our lives? Where did that spirit of fear get authority? Because if that demon is exercising power against us, there would have been a legitimate reason where that spirit could come in against us. The spiritual realm does not have authority in our lives except where we give it authority. And I can tell you there's a few instances where the spirit of fear does get authority into our lives. One is where there's a traumatic experience. And this often happens, just generally when children are just about to go into teenage. There's a period when the children are becoming adults in the spiritual realm, and the devil comes in just at that time. It's normally at about the age of 12 years old. The devil will try and exert authority, because at that point we come out of the authority of our parents, and we're basically adults in the spiritual realm, and they can then attack us directly. We're no more under the covering of our parents. So if there's a history of fear in a person's life, they need to go back and pray and seek God and say, God, where did this demonic authority get its power? How did I allow this spirit to get a power into my life? As I say, it can be a trauma. It could be a decision to start watching, movies that have got a lot of, horror movies. It could be, a separation. Something could happen where a family member was separated, or there could have been maybe a period of abuse. Some person was physically abused in some way or sexually abused. So generally those kinds of things where a person suddenly feels vulnerable and betrayed, or their privacy invaded, or abandoned, or anything like that. There could have been a divorce in a parent's marriage, and these create anxiety for us as children. And what the devil does is he gets authority at that time to come into our lives. So I would say anybody that's got a real sense of fear, they need to actually just really pray and say, God, show me where this came in. And generally the Lord would then take you back and remind you of the incident. And normally it's a process of saying, Lord, forgive maybe other people, or Lord, forgive me. And I renounce that authority I allowed in. I reject that authority. There's a process where you can, because our words have got power, and our words, as it's a statement of our heart, we can then just renounce things that we've allowed into our lives. We can renounce authorities. We can ask for forgiveness of things that we've done or said, any vows we've made. I'll never accept this. I'll never trust anybody again. Something like that we say when we've been hurt, or we've had a breach, or a disappointment. That's one of the main ways where the spirit of fear gets in. Another situation happens is also at about that time we become very conscious of the social pressures around us from peer pressure. It's an interesting time how the devil starts to work social pressures into our lives at that time. And we can face a lot of rejection from other people. That can create a lot of anxiety and stress and fear. When people come up against you, or they reject you, or they pick on you, or accuse you, or they single you out for some abuse, that can be also a time. And what actually happens is these spirits get authority when we become stressed, and we become angered and embittered against people that have harmed us or hurt us in some way. And it's important to forgive those people. Anybody that's actually caused any sort of abuse in that sense. A part of the healing process of denying the spirit authority is to actually forgive those people. It's not for their benefit, it's for your own benefit. So I would say anybody that has come against you, or harmed you, or accused you in any way, is to forgive them. They may have destroyed your past. Don't let them destroy your future. And you need to honestly forgive them. And you will know when you've forgiven them, when you can start to pray blessing upon their lives without feeling any anxiety. Or if they're to walk into the room where you are right now, you would not feel any stress or anxiety or any affliction. And you need to pray for those people and ask God for mercy and grace and love and peace upon them. And it's going to be hard to start, because that spirit has got authority in you. That spirit of anger or bitterness or anxiety or stress has got authority in you because of what they've done. But you can overcome everything through love. And that's how you do it. You start to pray for those people. And it's going to be hard to start. But as you do it more and more, you'll feel the love of God flowing into you. And the power of that spirit would start to ease away and have no more authority in you. And the Bible is clear. It says love overcomes all things. If you can act in love against somebody's evil, all the evil that they brought you is going to be sucked out and drained out of your soul. And the love that's in you will start to flow into those people. And when you come across them by chance one day in the future, if you haven't seen them for a while, the only thing that will show on your face when you see them is love. And the love that's in you for them, through your prayers, is going to start to change them. It's incredible how it works, but that is the power of God's love. And the word says love overcomes all things. The other things that can cause us anxiety or the spirit of fear authority is if we've taken any substances, any drugs, or taken long doses of alcohol, got very drunk, or abused any substances that's altered our minds, or if we've taken even legal medication. Medication is very destructive. It's got so many side effects that the manufacturers don't even know half the side effects. even though you open up any medication, you open up and you read the I think it's called contradictions that happen when you take it. There's probably 100 things on each one of these medications, but they alone can cause anxiety and fear. They alter the chemical processes of the body. They alter the systems, and medication alone can be a great cause of anxiety and stress. And the other things as well. Some people that they might have intolerance of something very simple like caffeine. Where you just have it in coffee or tea or chocolate. There are substances that some people are just not that tolerant towards, and you can do a test process. I would say if you ever want to find out if you've got some intolerance towards a foodstuff, is just fast for a day on water, and at the end of the day, take that substance, whatever it is. Have a cup of coffee and see if your anxiety suddenly shoots up. If you're drinking water the whole day and you're not eating any food, your system will come into its normal order. And as soon as you take a substance that is potentially causing anxiety, as soon as you have it, at the end of that fasting down water, you will immediately know the difference. You will not be mistaken about it in the future. And you can eliminate those kind of substances that you eat or that you drink. And I would suggest you go through it one process at a time, especially if it's something that you really enjoy and you probably take it quite frequently. It's something that you might be slightly addicted to. Just do a test on that and see how your body responds. And look, the other thing is as well, as I mentioned earlier on, fear and faith are opposite. The more time you spend with God, the more your faith's going to build. And the more that your faith builds, the more that fear is going to leave. And one of the key things that happens when the spirit of fear comes and you start to feel that anxiety and that stress is you need to boldly state out the opposite. You need to speak in faith. When you're starting to suddenly feel anxious and you're starting to shake or whatever the situation is, you need to start to profess scriptures and stand up and speak them out boldly. You know, when the devil came to tempt Jesus, all he did is he quoted scripture and the devil left. And it might seem bizarre but that is when we fully understand all things, we will understand that we are made in the image of God, that we've got power in our words to change our destiny. So fear and anxiety are probably two of the most prevailing conditions in this modern age. Fear and anxiety. 2 Timothy 1:7 says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind." So what we understand from that clearly, fear and anxiety can be caused from an attack or an event or condition in the spiritual realm. Fear and anxiety is a direct consequence of our own decisions, either knowingly or unknowingly. If you go to most psychiatrists or thought police, they will tell you it's somebody else to blame or there's a reason outside of your power. And what they're really telling you is that you have to live with that condition because it's out of your control. I want to tell you right now that fear and anxiety is a direct consequence of our own decisions, of our own actions. And that means it may be, you may feel there's a sense of, of judgment, that, someone's trying to accuse you or judge you. But ultimately what it means is if it is something that you've done that's led to your fear and anxiety, it means that you have the power to reverse that situation. I'm going to tell you there are two ways that you can put something into your soul or your body that can cause fear and anxiety. Natural causes, obviously those are quite easy. I'm not going to go too much into that, but it's medication. You just have to read the inserts of the medication that you are being prescribed, and often you will see the impact of what it does on your mental state. Number two is diet. A lot of the mass-produced food, GMO foodstuffs, preservatives, additives, even unknown foods that haven't even been analyzed properly, that are considered superfoods. These all have caffeine as well. They all have a way of impacting our physical state and changing our anxiety and fear levels. Some of the other natural causes are geoengineering. We know that there's been toxins sprayed into the atmosphere all the time. There's chemicals in the environment, the water. There's a lot of toxins in the water, fluoride, chlorine. Most of the water is recycled, and everybody else's, drugs and antibiotics and what else people are taking is being, dumped into the water supply. And if you're not drinking filtered water, preferably reverse osmosis, you're going to be having the negative effects of what you're putting into your body. So those are the natural sides. I want to mostly focus on the spiritual side because, first of all, most people, we neglect to actually even consider the spiritual realm. But right there in the scriptures, as I read, for God has not given us a spirit of fear. There is a spirit that can cause fear. And if you go right to the beginning of the Bible in Genesis, when Adam and Eve, when they actually rejected God, and God came through and He was looking for them, and they were hiding. And He said, "Why are you hiding?" He said, "I heard your," and Adam said, "I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. I hid myself." So the consequences of doing something wrong can stir up fear in us. And I want to give you some of the signs of spiritual fear. So one of the obvious things is if you're going to allow pollution into your soul, if you're going to watch horror movies, if you're going to listen to demonic music, if you're going to expose your senses to something that's demonic, that's got a demonic undertone, you're going to allow a spirit of fear to come against you. So people that are actually experiencing fear in life, the first thing I say is people is, first of all, look at your natural stuff, what you put into your body. Do those things have the potential to cause fear and anxiety? And then look at the things that you're putting into your soul. Are you watching pollution? Are you watching rubbish? Are you watching the news that's telling you everything's going wrong and there's evil around every single corner? Are you allowing your conversations to be around things that stir up and allow that spirit of fear to get authority in your life? So those are the first things. Now there are some other things that cause fear. This is what I really want to talk about. Besides those general, simple things that I've mentioned that you can address almost immediately, there are things that allow a spirit of fear to come into our lives. The first thing is ancestry. When a parent or grandparent has allowed fear to become part of their spiritual makeup, that means they've yielded to a spirit of fear. They've denied faith. They're not trusting God. They're not close enough to God. Because when you're close to God and you're trusting God and you're under God's authority, the spirit of fear cannot get hold of you. You cannot yield to fear and faith. So when you have a parent or grandparent who has yielded to the spirit of fear, through their actions, that can be passed down into your life, into your children's life. And these things can pass generally 3 to 4 generations, even more. So that's one of the key areas we can look at is how do we actually break that authority. And I'll tell you at the end how you do that, but that's one thing you need to be aware. If you've got fearful parents or grandparents or fearful people that have an authority over you, that's going to be an opening door for that spirit of fear to come against you. I just touched on it briefly. The second one is authority. People in authority over us, legitimate authority, have the power to pass the spirit of fear through into our lives. In this regard, legitimate authority is as I mentioned, its parents, its partners, especially for women come under the spiritual authority of their partners. So, a spirit of fear can pass through through a partner. It's through teachers, and it's increasingly through government authorities. The government can exert fear into the community's lives by their actions and their behaviors. The third spiritual root is demonic, and that's I'm talking here about getting involved in the occult, getting involved in alternate religions, getting involved in philosophies and spiritual activities without really understanding what you're doing. So you can quickly yield to an authority by your actions, by your utterances, by your associations, and these activities, they give the spirit of fear legitimate authority to come against you and to exercise that authority against your soul. Another one is the fourth one is curses. Curses do not have power against us without cause, but we can very easily give them cause by our actions and our behaviors and what we look at and what we do with our senses. What you expose yourself to can allow in authority against us. What we say against other people, if we speak evil against other people, if we judge other people, if we curse other people, we can come under the same condemnation, because the Bible is very clear. Whatever you do, whatever you sow, you reap. The devil can't come against you unless you are cursing and judging other people. Other people's curses will not have effect against you if you're not cursing people. As soon as you start to curse, when you judge and curse other people, you have yielded to that spirit. And when you've yielded to that spirit, other people who have yielded to the same spirit can curse and judge you. And by their words, they can establish things in your life. So it's really important that you have a pure heart and a pure mind. Do not judge, curse other people. Do not speak evil of other people, because you will allow authority to come against you. The fifth one that's really important, and it is our words. And I've already touched on it a bit, but our words, we are made in the image of God, and God spoke things into existence. So when we speak certain things and we say certain things, even if in anger or bitterness or when we're unhappy, we can curse ourselves. We can speak evil against ourselves. We can make proclamations and vows when we're angry or embittered or being let down or disappointed. And we can allow a spirit to come and have authority in our life. And often these spirits draw other spirits into our lives. And when they're acting in our lives, they're separating us from God. They're separating us from faith, and they're allowing the copy to come in, which is fear. Okay, so fear and faith, you're going to allow one of the two into your soul. Our actions as well, they cause us to have allow the spirit of fear to come in and anxiety to come in. You watch an evil movie, get involved in the occult, excessive consumption of product. You can consume certain things that it can put your whole body out of order. So if you're drinking 10 cups of coffee a day, for example, as it's just an exaggeration, that level of caffeine is going to put your whole system out of synchronization, and that anxiety and fear will come upon you very quickly. And then, of course, finally, I just wanted to add is that there is our spirituality. And when we deny God authority in our lives, we open the door for other powers to come in against us. And the scripture talks about in the New Testament, it talks about it says perfect love casts out fear. So when we have a relationship with God, when He is an authority in our life, fear does not have power to come against us. It says 1 John 4:18, there is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. But because fear has torment, he that fears is not perfectly in love. So when you're yielding to God and you're giving him authority in your life, faith will start to increase and fear will start to leave. So that's some of the things that we can do. Those actions we can take to eliminate the spirit of fear. So if there's anything that you're in a situation of fear or anxiety and you recognize one of these things or more of these things that you're doing or relying in, especially the spiritual things, this is how you break that demonic fear of your life. First of all, you got to pray for God. You got to pray to God and say, God, where have I allowed the spirit authority? How did the spirit get authority in my life? And you keep praying. You keep asking God. If you're diligent, God is going to start to convict you and remind you of certain things you've done or said. And once you get that revelation, you need to acknowledge them. Lord, I've done these things. I've said these things. I've taken these substances. Whatever it is, you need to acknowledge what you've done. You need to repent to them. God, I confess unto these things. I renounce them. I reject them. I ask, Lord, you forgive me for doing these things. And then the next step is to command that spirit of fear to leave. Once you renounced and repented of your wrongdoing, that demonic spirit that's come against you, fear and anxiety, and does not have legitimate authority to stay in your life. But you do need to be diligent in your prayer. You do be diligent in what God can reveal to you and show you the exact cause of how that fear and anxiety has come against you. And thereafter, it's just a matter of being systematic and effectual and fervent. Whenever the spirit will try to come back to you a dozen times, you need to just stand on what you've done. You need to continue to pray. You need to draw close to God. And every time that fear comes against you, you just go down and you start praying. You declare and you state out aloud, Lord, I reject this fear. I reject this anxiety. I am trusting you, Father. I'm putting my life in your hands. I'm at your mercy, Lord. And if you have to do that 20, 30, 40 times a day, every time that spirit of fear comes against you, you do it. And over a period of time, the spirit of fear will become less prevailing, have less authority, and you will start to stand up against it and resist it. And that is how you overcome the spirit of fear.